who finds yourself at the end of the day, like standing in front of the fridge, you have a recipe ready for you. That recipe has 8 to 10 ingredients. In your mind at the beginning of the day, you thought, yes, absolutely, I can do this. But now you're standing in their fridge, completely paralyzed, eating a stick of cheese, trying to figure out how the hell you're going to make this recipe, only to say, "That is too much. I cannot do this," and you end up door dashing a meal that feels really indulgent and obviously very tasty, but also you have health goals and you're just like, "Why can't I follow this plan?" Well, today we are talking about neurodivergence and ADHD and how it affects your food choices. Now, a lot of these things that we're gonna talk about today are things that I've touched on before, but I really want to focus on the ADHD brain and the overwhelmed brain. So, an overwhelmed brain, which a lot of my clients are, whether you have a diagnosis of ADHD or you're just fucking overwhelmed, this is the live stream for you. So, welcome back to the Mindset Mirror Connection live stream. I think. There we go. Welcome to the Mindset Mirror Connection podcast, the podcast where we debunk the eat less, move more, shrink more mentality and focus on what really matters, which includes your relationship with your body, food, self-worth, and the behaviors that align with all of those. I'm your host, Christina Hathaway, licensed therapist with specialized training in food and body obsession, certified personal trainer and nutrition coach. At the Mindset Mirror Connection podcast, we believe what you say in your mind, you see in the mirror. So let's have a conversation about that. Let's do it. Let's do it today. All right. So, where am I at? That's a good question. Nope. Uh-oh. Technical problems. We're going to stop. There we go. Yay. Hi. All right. So, why does it feel so difficult when you have a neurodivergent brain to make choices? Now, what is a neurodivergent brain? If you're like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Um, a neurodivergent brain is a brain, that is someone who struggles with ADHD. And ADHD isn't necessarily someone who is hyperactive. In my case, as someone who has a diagnosis of ADHD, I really struggle with focus. My brain feels like it has like multiple tabs open at all times. And at any given moment, I will be on one tab and have a reminder of something on the other tab. I will open the other tab. I will not finish what I was doing in the first tab and start working on that and get frustrated with myself because I'm trying to get something done. Another thing I tend to do is have false confidence in myself that I'm going to remember things later on down the line. I will have these like jolts of ideas or things that I need to do. And if I do not write them down, my brain says you'll remember. It never remembers. Okay. The neurodivergent brain can definitely feel, hold on, I lost you guys. There we go. It can definitely just feel overwhelmed, right? And what ends up happening when you have a brain that's just overwhelmed, whether it's neurodivergent or not. So I want to again say that this is not just a conversation with people with a diagnosis of ADHD. This is a conversation with anyone who is overwhelmed and has an overwhelmed brain, right? Because for me, as someone who's ADHD, but also for just my high achievers, my perfectionist, you will get busy, you will stay busy, you will stay focused, you'll stay in the zone. And for a lot of my clients, they will be in the zone so long that they won't even know that they're hungry. Okay. And it's not until their body is screaming that they are hungry that they will end up realizing, oh, I'm freaking starving. Okay. And for the overwhelmed, perfectionistic, even ADHD brain, the brain really disconnects from your hunger cues, right? So, um, you're you're so focused on the thing that you don't even realize, like, you haven't eaten, right? Your brain and your body have this almost disconnect, right? And then when food like, when it finally is time for you to eat, you're so hungry that then you're reaching for the thing that's gonna give you the energy the fastest, which are gonna be simple carbs, they're going to be more indulgent foods, Or, as we've talked about in the past, and I think this is important, they're gonna be foods that you know work for you. Whether those foods are a part of, are let me say this, whether the you're gonna find foods that work for you, whether those foods are a part of your goals that you have around your nutrition, around the nutrients that you put in your body, etcetera. So, that could be like, "Well, I know I like Taco Bell bean and cheese burritos, so I'm just gonna order those," right? Can't always eat Taco Bell bean and cheese burritos if you're on a weight loss journey or just a health journey. A lot of the clients that I work with are not here for weight loss, they're here for better labs, right? But the problem with that is then you have that failure narrative that we talk about all the time of like, "Why can't I figure this out?" Like, "I don't have the motivation." That's a word I heard this week. "I'm lazy." That's a word I heard this week. "I lack discipline." That's another word I heard this week. And that that pattern creates more, obviously internal conflict. That internal conflict, guess what? Is more busyness in your brain. So you're just layering and layering and layering, right? And for a lot of you, you don't even realize, like for a lot of women, like this crash that happens with throughout their day, you have just decided like it's normal. It's normal for me to skip meals. My mother does this. She's like, I don't even know if I ate. Actually, this is something a client said yesterday who this client's life is very busy. And she said, I was at one of my child's doctor's appointments and I didn't even know if I ate, right? And but we normalize it. We normalize it. And not just you in your mind, but diet culture normalizes it as well. Because in our heads, like, we hear about intermittent fasting, we hear about, skipping breakfast and just having a protein coffee or whatever. And obviously, caffeine in itself can curb our appetites. So we see a lot of people like do this as a way to like curb their calorie intake. However, what we don't see is the ramifications of that throughout the day. But coming back to it is like, you know, you completely miss the meal because you're either busy or you have all these things that you need to do, and again, it's not until the body starts screaming at you that you then need that, you finally reach for food. And, you know, some of the things that a lot of my clients deal with, and I've done this too, you guys, that the overwhelmed perfectionistic brain tends to struggle with, because if I'm a perfectionist, like I'm going to work on something until it is perfect, right? Now perfect doesn't exist. That's a whole conversation. You guys will see a new episode on Monday, I think, on perfectionism cycle. Oh, such a good episode, so be on the lookout for that. Um they don't realize what myself as a clinician considers like hunger cues, like what that can look like. It's not just like your stomach rumbling. I know for me, I get lightheaded actually. Um I have a difficult time focusing. I get a lot more brain fog when I'm not properly fed. I might be hangry, right? I might have like that like shakiness. For me, because I'm so regimented on how I eat now, I do actually feel the shift in my blood sugar. Am very in tune with my body, but prior to that, it was just like, why am I feeling more anxious? Right? I'm feeling more anxious. You might feel nauseous, right? And these are often signs that the body just does not have enough fuel, and it's starting to kind of slow down systems that it doesn't really need in that moment. Like, sorry, you don't really need critical thinking when you're not fed. You need food, right? And the again, a lot of these symptoms people don't even realize can be supported or reduced, I should say, simply by feeding yourself more, which we'll talk about, right? However, I also want to acknowledge this is a theme this week, you guys. I wrote I want to just tell you some things that I wrote down this week. So I have in here from my OBGYN, we're overcomplicating the plan or the system. Your plan should be so simple that it works when energy is low. Okay, so we have that. Um, let's see here. Do, 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 do. I know I talked about this with this client as well, that um, if the cut feels overwhelming, it means that the plan is not simple enough, is basically what I just put simplify, but that was the conversation we had. And then again, with this client, like, we need to find defaults to your nutrition so that when you're overwhelmed, it requires little energy for you to execute. And that's something I talk about often on here, but I just need to reiterate that. Like, when it comes to nutrition, it should not feel like a task. You should have created such a simplified plan to your nutrition. And that's not just the meals themselves, you guys. It's how we prepare for those meals, how we create a routine around those meals, the habits that we have surrounding those meals. That even if you're depleted here, it just happens. It's kind of like I have to take my contacts out. Like, I don't sleep in my contacts. I used to work for an eye doctor, like, when in high school, so, like, I know the damage of sleeping in your contacts. Like, I don't care how tired I am, my contacts are coming out, right? And that's for my eye health. Eating is for your everything health. And so we've gotta get out of the mentality of skipping it, missing it, as if doing it is a task, like another thing to do on my list. It is the foundation. Something I said to my client earlier today was, she goes, "Well, then I'm sitting there thinking, all the things I should be doing, that I can't when she's overwhelmed." She is an OBGYN. She works call shifts. She's very, very busy. I mean, she's been working crazy hours, and not just crazy hours. Like, you have to realize too, a lot of my clients work face to face with people, and in some capacities, especially in the medical field, they're very emotional conversations. So that's emotionally draining. So we're physically drained, we're mentally drained because obviously she's a fucking doctor, and we're emotionally drained, right? But still, in her perfectionism brain, right? So the overwhelmed brain, she is saying, I should be able to do all of these things. And I said, what if we changed I should to what could? What could I do if I'm properly fueled right now? And she laughs and she's like, "That's good." I'm like, "Yeah." Right? We need to be able to, like, that your nutrition is your fuel for everything that you do. It is not something that is sorry, I have to tell you guys about my cold, but in a second. It is not something that is optional, especially for the high pressure woman that I work with that listens to this podcast, and men, okay? So, what we want to do, as I tell you guys all the time, is build a system for those heavier days. This system does not look the same as your normal routine. Okay. So, for me, um, I would say my normal routine and my system work actually pretty much the same just because I've been doing them for so long. You know what they look like. If you're new to this podcast, I have the same 3 to 5 meals for breakfast, lunch, and dinner that me and my husband rotate through. That's what we do, right? However, I do notice when I'm in a default mode, or so meaning an overwhelmed brain, a yogurt cup seems to be my go-to because there's no cooking involved, right? So I just get a cup of yogurt, which is 8 ounces. I'll do berries, strawberries. I'll either do like walnuts and honey, or I will do some granola on top. That's basically it, right? That's an easy default. It's very simple to make. It doesn't require any of my time. It actually requires very little energy. The only thing I do is cut up the strawberries. You don't even need to do that. You can throw raspberries on it. You can throw blackberries on it, blueberries. You've got fiber. You've got protein. It's satiating. We're all good, right? I'm going to use that fuel to sustain the energy. For lunch, as you guys know, my favorite thing to do is a fucking sandwich. A sandwich. 4 to 6 ounces of meat, which at this point I know what it looks like on the bread. lettuce, tomato, some mustard, and then I'll have either baby carrots and some ranch on the side or some baked kettle chips or baked Cheetos or whatever, and of course, a Diet Coke. And then for dinner, we have our defaults. And the nice thing for my family in dinner is that we can Mark usually cooks, but we both know the recipes. So if someone needs to come in and cook, we do that. So the goal here is when we have, if you're someone whose reality, meaning your day to day life is, or I shouldn't say day to day, or okay, I'm gonna say this in two things. If you're someone whose day to day life is always overwhelmed, because I work with people like that, I work with people who are caregivers. For like one of my clients that I met with yesterday, she's a caregiver for her daughter who is dependent, completely dependent on her. Okay. That's one person. Or like the OBGYN that I work with or the neurosurgeon I work with, her schedule can kind of fluctuate between high stress and mid and moderate stress. She's rarely low stress, right? So the plan for moderate stress will look one way. The plan for high stress needs to be so simple, it's stupid. And what I mean by that is it requires zero cognitive energy or mental capacity, right? And that's what I want to talk about today. So, one of the biggest things that we want to do, as you guys already know, is not just repeat meals, because we talk about repeating meals when we are talking about planning, but have repeat meals for the stress, the overwhelmed brain times that are so simple. And so simple should be requires less than 5 minutes for you to make. Okay. In my collective, my 8-week collective that I do quarterly, we have one coming up in September. We have a menu of um, 10 breakfasts, 10 lunches, and 10 dinners, all under 5-minute prep and all based on where you shop. Okay. If you shop at Trader Joe's, there will be a 5-minute pairing of food. Okay, so what does that mean? So I might have the Trader Joe bell pepper bites with a side of the Trader Joe protein pancake bites and the sausage. So we're throwing that in the microwave. It takes 5 minutes, maybe 8 minutes, just depending on like how your microwave works. And then we're eating it, right? We're getting fiber in, we're getting protein in. Yes, there's going to be a little bit more of that sodium. However, we're not doing this every single day. We're doing this during our overwhelmed perfectionist brain days. Okay. So that's how simple I want it, either no cook or microwave. Okay. Because even the air fryer is great. My air fryer takes about 3 minutes to heat up. And then usually whatever I'm putting in it is going to also take about 3 to 5 minutes to heat up, so that's gonna be a little bit longer, okay, so an 8-minute prep, but for the collective, all of this is provided for you. The so simple meal prep plans that are at least 30 grams of protein, at least 4 to 5 grams of fiber per meal. Trader Joe's, Whole Foods, Target, Costco, Sprouts, and General Market, okay? If you guys are interested in the collective, I will, have it in my channel notes. So the channel notes, okay? For clients that are listening, if you any of those menu items or those menus, are screaming your name, just let me know, message me in the app, and I will send you the resource. Okay, so simplify, right? We're going to repeat meals, but more importantly, we're going to repeat meals that are 5 minutes or less, okay? The other thing that I like to do with clients is have them schedule their meals. If you're someone who lives by like your Google Calendar, your Motion Calendar, whatever, put in there a reminder to eat. I know that sounds crazy, but it works. I just got off the phone with a client. She's a business owner. She's very busy. She goes, "Honestly, I'm even putting my workouts in the app and I will write in I'm sorry, not the app, in her calendar. And she'll even write like her PRs in there. So like she can see it's kind of a cool thing she does. So she like will write in the workouts and then she can write in like her PRs. So then when she's looking at her calendar, she's like, "Oh, look at my little," because you could see the notes on her calendar. Anyway, I think that's cool. Another way you could do that is in your phone, right? In your phone, setting those reminders and having them go off and not shutting them off until you eat. It's like you can make them alarms because if you make it an alarm, you can snooze it, but we're not turning it off. Similar to when you wake up. You've gotta wake up, you've gotta eat, okay? So that's that. The other thing that I think is important that we talked about in the beginning is paying attention to what your body does when it's hungry. So, like what I talked about my body is I get kind of like anxious and lightheaded. Like I can feel the difference in my blood sugar. It sucks. I hate it. It's the worst feeling. I hate it. Okay. What does your body do when you are un you're not fed, right? Make sure you're paying attention to that because you might write that off as stress when it's actually signs that you're hungry. Being hungry isn't technically a stress, but you guys hear what I'm saying. Pay attention to what those signs are. Are we more irritable? Do things feel harder? Right? Do we feel like, the next question someone asks us, we're going to snap at them? Are we really having a hard time making a decision, following through with the tasks that we're doing, right? Are we feeling just fatigued? Pay attention to those signs so then obviously your body's going to tell you if you can't figure it out mentally that you're hungry, your body will tell you and you're like, "Oh, I'm feeling that wheeziness. I need to eat something." That's a big thing that I do because I rarely get to that place, but if I do, it's like, "Ah," right? And another thing I like my clients to do is have what I talked to my client about this today is like have a break in case of an emergency plan for her because in her hospital there are sandwiches that are always in like the doctor's quarters. Um, she can also store things like hard-boiled eggs in there. There's fruit in there. She can store stuff. So I'm like, look, keep it fucking simple. It's either a sandwich, hard-boiled eggs, or a piece of fruit, or a combination of those. That's it. That is it. We're not eating like that every single meal. Remember that. For my client who is the caretaker, we're doing this a little bit differently. But we're not eating this for every single meal, but we always have the option. Another thing that I like to do here, and if you're listening, let me see. Who one's on today? Let me see something. Where are my clients at? I'm just checking if the link hasn't been working, but okay. Anyway, um, is having a bag of non-perishable snacks in your car, and not in the car, in the trunk. I love this when you're running around with your kids and you don't usually stop, like having things like a trail mix, granola bars, crackers, things like that, even like their Slate makes little protein packets, like individual ones. Fruit roll-ups are great to put in those. Have that in your car because I hear so many times where I was just running around with the kids, they were hungry, so I grabbed them what they wanted, and now I'm eating a Big Mac, right? Big Macs aren't bad, but you get what I'm saying, okay? And let's make sure we're eating breakfast. It's the easiest way for your body to kind of start the process. You break your fast, your ghrelin, your leptin are released. You eat the food, so then that allows for leptin to say, "Okay, we've got fuel in." Leptin is the hormone that says, I'm full." Now, the further you go from eating, the further that leptin is going to be released. That is a true statement. Why? Because the body's like, "Well, shit, you've not been feeding me, so I'm not gonna release this hormone when I normally do so I can kinda eat more." It's not exactly how it works, but that's how it works, okay? Especially if we're not eating carbohydrates. So, make sure that you're eating breakfast. Again, make it simple, keep it simple, make that a default, okay? And that's really it. That's really it. In my collective, you will have a ton of options on how to do this. And in the collective, we have you checking in, planning for the next week on Wednesdays. So on Wednesday, you receive your capacity check in. That capacity check in asks you questions about the next week. So, for example, my OBGYN client, if she's on call, we're going to consider that a week where we need less workouts and shorter meal prep options, right? Or if I have a mom who now has kids going back to school, we have meet the teacher night, we have soccer orientation, we have dance tryouts, we have right? That's going to be a week where we need to simplify. And she doesn't have to think. She has the list. She decides the 2 to 3 breakfast, lunches and dinners. She already has a list where she's gonna find it, right? The store she shops at. She just has to purchase it. I even have a reminder to order your groceries. Now, Trader Joe's doesn't allow that. Every other one of the options does because we utilize things like Instacart, like a delivery service or a pickup service because these are overwhelmed brains. So we keep it simple. Every meal is at least 30 grams of protein, at least 4 to 5 grams of fiber. They keep you full, they keep you fueled, and they keep you from feeling like you don't know what to do because every other meal plan, every other program out there, I get so overwhelmed, you guys, when I watch some of these people put their recipes together. I'm like, if it has more than like 5 ingredients, I don't want it. I literally don't want it. Same when people send me stuff. I'm like, "I'm not gonna read this. I'm not gonna read it." Like, I don't have that's not how this works. Give me the Cliffs Notes, the TLDR, whatever the hell it's called. We're TLDRing. Is that what it's called? Too long. TLDR. I don't remember. Yeah, whatever. You know what I'm talking about. Too long. Didn't read. That's what it is. I want the TLDR when it comes to meals for you guys. When we're overwhelmed, when we're in the overwhelmed brain, our situation is overwhelming. Let me talk about what I'm doing with my client who's that is her forever. That is what is her life. Now, number one thing we're working on is asking for help. So that's a big deal, right? Cuz she has been the sole caretaker even though she is married for her daughter. Now her husband does have more time to help, so we're working on that. Number 2 is we are looking at a meal prep company that she can utilize, and they do a la carte services, the one here in Phoenix that I like. So, a la carte proteins, a la carte sides, but then they also do meals. And then I'm also sending her, I have it on my to-do list to send over tomorrow, a list from Sprouts of their pre-cooked meals because we also need to be in this particular case, I have to be aware of her daughter's um allergies. So I'm looking at all the meals and saying, "Okay, these are the ones you can choose from. Let's try some of them out and see how it works for you." So, that's what I'm doing with her. The another thing we're doing with her is for her workouts, she actually is creating we're calling it Me Space, I should call it My Space, in the room where her daughter is, where she'll have some bands. When her daughter's sleeping, she'll get some movement in. Very, very custom to her needs, and that's what I do here. That's what we do here. So, that is the conversation today. What do we do with an overwhelmed brain, right? An overwhelmed brain, again, is a brain that is destined to binge eat, let's face it, or eat something that's not in alignment with their goals because it thinks that it needs to create a 5-course meal when it's been going, going, going all day long. It does not have to do that. It does not have to do that to be healthy. Stop following people who overdo or overcomplicate health. It's very basic. It can be very simple, and it does not have to require that much cognitive energy. And I will say this, and this is a conversation I've had this week as well. When you overcomplicate it, your brain says that takes too much energy. When your brain says that takes too much energy, it will actually kick up the anti reward pathway that says, yeah, I'm not gonna give you motivation for that. That's too hard. That's what happens. So make it less complicated, keep it simple so the brain doesn't perceive it as a potential failure or a potential pain, if you will. That's what we wanna do. If you guys are interested in the collective, I will put the link in my, notes in the channel, so you'll see it right underneath there. It's an 8-week collective. Again, it is all based on cognitive flexibility and flexibility with your nutrition and your exercise based on the time that you have on in a 7-day period. We're planning 7 days at once. We're planning ahead for hell. We're planning ahead for heaven. We're planning ahead for the weeks that we can do more. We're planning ahead for the weeks when we can't do enough. And we change the plan, very small changes, based on your capacity. It's an incredible program. It is absolutely necessary. And it truly is the foundation that you need to be consistent, right? Consistency over intensity, over complicating things, all of that. It's consistency. So if you're interested, check out those notes. Other than that, I hope you guys found this helpful. And I will see you guys. Make sure to check out the podcast. I talked about reverse dieting this week and the mental struggle with that, as well as this coming week, we're going all up in perfectionism because that's who I work with. All right, y'all. Take care. And I will leave you the same way I do every single week, reminding you that what you say in your mind, you see in the mirror. Bye bye.